Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back. Come in, sit down. I'm very glad you're here tonight. Tonight I want to tell you about something beautiful. But to understand why it is so beautiful, we have to begin in a very dark place. I'll ask you to stay with me through the darkness, because what grows out of it is one of the most extraordinary things the human spirit has ever done. Let me take you to the coast of Angola in West Africa, sometime in the 17th century. Imagine a young man. He has a family, a village, a life. He knows the songs his people sing at harvest, the movements they make in their ceremonies, the way the elders move their bodies in an old ritual called Ngolo, a kind of dance, a kind of game, a kind of training, all at once, performed in a circle with clapping and song. And then one day, without warning, that life ends. He is captured, taken by slave traders to the edge of the sea, to a place he has never seen, and forced onto a wooden ship. What happened next is something I find difficult to describe. And yet I think we owe it to these people not to look away. The voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The passage from Africa to Brazil took, on average, around 2 months, sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes longer. For all that time, hundreds of human beings were packed into the hold of a ship, below the deck, in a space so low that a person often could not sit upright, chained together, in darkness, in heat so severe that the air itself seemed to run out. Many did not survive the crossing. Historians estimate that of every 100 people who began that voyage, 15 or more died before they ever saw land. The young man from Angola survived. And at the end of that unimaginable journey, he was sold, sent to a sugar plantation in Brazil to work from before dawn until after dark, cutting cane in the heat, under men who carried whips, who considered him not a person, but property. Everything had been taken from him: his freedom, his homeland, his family, his name. And here, my friends, is where the story turns. Because there was one thing they could not take. They could not take what was inside him: the memory of the songs, the memory of the movements, the Ngolo of his people, that circle, that rhythm, that way of moving the body that his grandfather had taught him. But there was a problem. On the plantation, the enslaved were forbidden from training to fight. Any hint of it was punished severely. A man who was seen practicing combat could be beaten, or worse. So they did something ingenious, something that took breathtaking creativity, born in the worst conditions human beings have ever devised for one another. They disguised the fight as a dance. They took the kicks, the sweeps, the spins, the dodges, real combat movements, real self-defense, and they wrapped them inside music. They added the berimbau, a single-stringed instrument with a sound like nothing else on earth. They added clapping and singing and a swaying, flowing step called the jinga that keeps the whole body in constant, graceful motion. And they formed a circle, the roda, just as their ancestors had in Angola. To the overseer watching from a distance, it looked like the enslaved were simply dancing, singing, playing, making a little music at the end of a brutal day. Nothing to worry about, nothing to punish. But inside that circle, they were keeping themselves ready, keeping a piece of home alive, keeping their bodies and their spirits from being entirely broken. They called it, in time, Capoeira. Now, my dear friends, I want you to sit with what this actually means, because it would have been so understandable, so completely human, if what these people created had been full of hatred. Think of what had been done to them. Think of the ship. Think of the chains, the whip, the theft of every single thing a person holds dear. If any group of human beings in history ever had the right to build something out of rage, out of the desire for revenge against those who had done this to them, it was these men and women, and they did not. What they created was not a weapon of hatred. It was not a dance of revenge. It carried no venom toward a race, no bitterness toward a class. What they created was beautiful, joyful even, a thing of rhythm and grace and play and community. Something that, to this very day, when you watch two capoeiristas move together inside, the roda looks less like combat and more like two people, having a conversation with their whole bodies, smiling, testing, laughing, flowing. They took the single most brutal experience one group of humans has ever inflicted on another, and out of it, they made art. They made music. They made something you can watch today on a beach in Bahia and feel your own heart lift without ever knowing the sorrow it was born from. I have thought about this a great deal. How do people do that? How do you carry that much pain and choose, instead of passing the pain onward, to transform it into something that gives joy? I don't fully know the answer, but I know that it is one of the most dignified things I have ever encountered. To be handed the very worst of humanity, and to answer it with some of the best. To refuse to let what was done to you become what you do to the world. Capoeira is now practiced in every corner of the earth. In Brazil, in Europe, in Asia, in the United States. Children learn it. It has become, at last, exactly what those first enslaved men and women disguised it as, all those centuries ago. A dance, a game, a joy, free now, in a way its creators never were. And every circle, every roda, every note of that strange and beautiful berimbau still carries their memory. Not a memory of hatred, a memory of survival and of grace. Thank you so much for spending this evening with me, my dear friends. Until next time, when the world hands you its worst, may you find the strength to answer with your best. Good night.